Hello, people. Hello, 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 people. So I have something to share with you all. Um, let's go, okay? We can talk later. A lot of things to discuss, but I just have this to show you all. Let's see.
All right, picture this. You're going through life friends, routine, work, everything. But then all of a sudden, bam, out of nowhere, it's Lent. And you're like, wait, 40 days of what now? Yeah, Lent. It's that season where people give up things like chocolate, social media, maybe even coffee if you're feeling particularly penitent. On second thought, maybe don't give up coffee. But seriously, when's the last time you actually thought about Lent and what it's really supposed to do for your spiritual life? We talk all the time about the desert and about no meat on Fridays and even celebrities getting ashes on Ash Wednesday.
But what's the bigger picture?
We talk to all sorts of people priests, religious, theology professors, even folks just like you and me. All of this just to answer the question,
How do we do Lent well?
Okay, guys. Hello, 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 people. How are you all doing today? How are you all doing today? I'm waiting for some people to join. Hi, Favor. Thank you for joining. Favor Odochukwu. Thank you for joining. Happy Sunday. How are you doing today? Um, yeah, good afternoon. King Cheerful. Good afternoon. How are you doing today? Happy Sunday. Yeah, I've been waiting for you guys, but actually I came late, like 6 minutes late. Trying to set up. I wanted to bring my treadmill over here so I can use the time for two things. Because from here I'm going to church. So I needed to see how I can get my time on treadmill and still get this life going. So who do we have here? We have King Cheerful. We have Favor. Please, if you are joining us, just type hi so I can see that you're here. The software I use does not let me know people who are joining us unless you say hi. Okay. I think if we have like two more people, I will just go ahead and start what I had. What's the message you want me to drop? Be cheerful. Do you have a question? Do you have a question, King Cheerful? What's the message you want me to drop? I dropped a message for you there concerning okay, our video. Let me see. Is that maybe it's a direct message? All right. I'll respond to it. Okay. Yeah, I'll respond to it. I'll go ahead and start. Those who join us later can watch the videos. That's the good thing about having a live session on. So, how to Lent? I saw something that I just want to share with you all. I think it's powerful. I think it's very good. So let's.
All right, picture this.
Yeah.
You're going through life. Friends, routine, work, everything. But then all of a sudden, bam, out of nowhere, it's Lent. And you're like, wait, 40 days of what now? Yeah, Lent. It's that season where people give up things like chocolate, social media, maybe even coffee if you're feeling particularly penitent. On second thought, maybe don't give up coffee. But seriously, when's the last time you actually thought about Lent and what it's really supposed to do for your spiritual life? We talk all the time about the desert and about no meat on Fridays and even celebrities getting ashes on Ash Wednesday.
But what's the bigger picture?
We talk to all sorts of people: priests, religious, theology professors, even folks just like you and me. Hi, I'm Selene, by the way. All of this just to answer the question,
How do we do Lent well?
All right, camera speeds. This is How to Lent, episode 1, interview number 1.
what is the first word that comes to mind when you think of Lent?
Fasting.
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 Giving something up.
Purple. Somber.
Ugh.
What did you give up for Lent last year?
What did I give up for Lent last year?
I really don't remember.
Oh man, last year.
Swearing.
I gave up cussing and lasted about 5 days.
Okay. Before we just go through all of this, did you do Lent last year? What was your practice last year? Can you think about it? How did you observe Lent for last year? Did you even do that? What did you do? Was it successful? And just keep that at the back of your mind as you watch other people share their story.
I gave up social media. You kind of forget how much time you spend on those. Last year, I gave up having my phone in my bedroom, which was actually very helpful.
Sugar.
Sweets, because sweets are definitely the death of me in my spiritual life.
Lent is coming up, Ash Wednesday is coming up. How do you feel?
Ill-prepared. Anxious?
Unprepared.
A little anxious and overwhelmed.
It's like it's great. It's good. Gonna give some stuff up, but yeah, it's fun.
I feel like I always forget. Honestly, I feel very excited.
Excited.
Excited. Lent's my favorite liturgical season. It's a time to really get back to like the basics.
For most of us, we feel like our Lents could be better, even should be better. But in order to have a good Lent, we first have to know, what is Lent anyways? We talked to some of our theology professors to find out.
Lent, at the most basic level, is a 40-day period of preparation before the most solemn celebration in the church's year, which is the Holy Triduum, these special days leading up to and including Easter.
The church's requirements in Lent are fasting on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday and abstaining from meat on all Fridays of Lent.
The model for this period comes from Jesus's 40 days spent in the desert, being tempted by the devil.
There's a lot of rich imagery for 40 days in Scripture. It's 40 years that the people are wandering in the wilderness. And of course, it's 40 days that Jesus is in prayer and fasting in the desert, at the end of which he is tempted by Satan. And I think it's especially because of those 40 days that Jesus spends in the desert that we've developed this tradition of stretching Lent out over 40 days.
The desert. It's an image often used in scripture as a place of reflection, contemplation, repentance, and even in the case of the Israelites, a place where some hard lessons were learned. And if we look around here, we can see why. First of all, it's quiet. There's no noise vying for my attention. It's simple. There is nothing out here to distract me. And it's a little uncomfortable. But this is where God chooses to meet his people, where he chooses to meet you. But let's be real. For most of us, our lives, they don't look anything like this. They look more like this. In the world, there are so many distractions, so much noise, so many things to take away our attention from God. But really, we're supposed to be here, in the desert. This is where God calls his people to encounter them, to teach them. And this is not just a place we're supposed to go to. It's something we're supposed to cultivate here, interiorly. As with anything in life, if we're going to go somewhere, if we're going to do something, experience something, then we need to have some preparation. Can you imagine if I wandered out here with no water, no food, no plan? I could get
Cindy asked the question, what's going on here? Cindy, we are preparing for Lent, so we are going through these teachings. They are very short, that will help us to prepare for Lent, to get ready for Lent, and to do Lent maybe better than we did last year. Okay? Thank you for asking.
lost. So if we're going to enter into the desert, we need a plan. That's why we invited some amazing spiritual directors, some priests, some religious, to guide us in how we can enter the desert of Lent.
The desert becomes a place of encounter between God and his people. While the people are in the desert, God provides for them, that he guides them, he safeguards them, he gives them food, he brings water from a rock that God says, when you go to the desert, you're not going to die, that I've brought you out here so that you can be here with me, that you can have greater intimacy with me. So what is the desert experience of Lent? The desert that we experience is really kind of emptying ourselves of the comforts and really the worldly distractions that we kind of live in too much.
So how do we go about that? What are the means that we're supposed to use as we do that? Thankfully, the church has been on this journey a lot longer than us, and the church is encouraging us to look at 3 different things: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Every year in the gospel for Ash Wednesday, Jesus talks about prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. He actually starts with almsgiving. And it's interesting the way he talks about it. He doesn't say, if you give alms or if you fast. He says, when you give alms, when you fast. It's assumed that these are just normal practices of our Christian life. And this Lenten season is a time for us to drill in specifically into those 3 things.
This Christian tradition has long seen a parallel between prayer, fasting, and almsgiving and the 3 temptations that Jesus undergoes in the desert from the devil. At the beginning of Matthew 4, Matthew writes, "Then Jesus was led out by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil, and he fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterward he was hungry. And that is when the tempter comes to him. And the tempter gives him these 3 temptations. He says, 'If you're the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread.' And then he says, 'If you're the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will give his angels charge of you. And the third temptation, he takes Jesus again to a vision where he sees all the kingdoms of the world. And he says, all these I will give to you if you will fall down and worship me. We get these three temptations for pleasure, for possessions, and for pride. The practical antidote to these three temptations is fasting, in which we deny ourselves the pleasures of the world, almsgiving, in which we deny ourselves possessions, and prayer, in which we turn out of our attention on ourselves and give our attention over to God.
So how do we decide what sacrifices to make for Lent? Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, these are the categories, but how do I decide for myself what's actually going to be best for me this Lent? I would say it comes down to one question. What needs to change in my life in order to make God the center of my life? One year in seminary, I gave up for Lent listening to the radio. Now, I pretty much only listened to the radio in the car. So if I was driving from point A to point B, I'd turn on some music. So one year I just gave it up, decided it was probably good to give myself some extra space or thinking time in the car. And what surprised me the most was how dramatically it had an impact on my life. Because I could go to bed at night and I didn't have a song stuck in my head. I would find myself just more inclined to fall asleep, for example. And when I went to prayer in the morning, my mind was just more at peace. When I sat in the car driving, yeah, I might think a little bit, but I found myself more and more talking to God, especially by the end of Lent. It ended up being such a good experience for me. And I found it so fruitful that I ended up continuing my penance. And I decided I'm just going to keep not listening to the radio until further notice. And I think I probably went about 2 years where I didn't listen to it at all, just because it was bearing such good fruit for my own spiritual life. So Lent is that time to start to pare away some of those things. How do I work on saying no to some things that might even be good things, but if they're at all standing in the way of me loving the Lord completely, that's what this Lenten season is about cutting those things out so that I can give the Lord a more complete yes.
One of the mistakes that I know that I've made in my life abundantly is that I usually think about things on my own, come to what I think is a pretty good decision, and then bring it to God and ask, is this okay? Don't get ahead of Jesus. He's the good shepherd. We follow him. So ask him where he wants to lead you this Lent, and it'll bear the fruit much more than we could hope, ask, or imagine on our own. And so I think one of the things to do as we prepare for Lent is not to misconstrue it as, oh, this is going to be some sort of spiritual performance that I'm going to do that'll be pleasing to God.
Making a plan for Lent can take some time. You got to be patient with yourself if you're struggling to identify what's the thing you need to work on the most. Some people go into the season of Lent with big ideas on what their penance is going to be. Maybe they're going to try something that seems particularly hard. And there can be some good in that for sure. I don't want to completely downplay that, but there can be a temptation that at the end of the Lenten seasons, just pat myself in the back, like, look at what I managed to do. Like, I did that really difficult thing. If I've gotten to the end of the Lenten season, I'm really good at giving up chocolate, but I'm still a jerk, then I did something wrong with the season of Lent. I didn't do the right penance, maybe. And so the season of Lent is a time to be intentional, to be specific about the thing that has to happen in your life in order to make more room for God. I would suggest take some time and write it down. Like if you journal, if you don't journal, start one, sit down and start writing these things out. Consider all the ways in which you could love the Lord better, in which you could make the Lord a little bit more the center of your life, the things that really do draw your heart, but they aren't God. For myself, almost every Lent, I get a sticky note and I write down my commitments. Maybe there's just 3 of them. And I put it on the mirror in the bathroom because I'm going to see that mirror multiple times throughout the week. And I'm going to have to remember those things, what they are and why I'm doing them. And if we start to feel discouraged because we're really struggling with that particular commitment we made, we just have to be patient with ourselves, turn to the Lord and tell him that we love him, and just try again. The Lord is abundantly merciful. He's just delighted that we're striving to make more space in our heart and in our day and with all of our sacrifices to make him more the center of our life. Ultimately, having a good Lent doesn't mean that you never slip up, you never made a mistake with keeping your Lenten commitment. But if you have made a plan, you've done what you can to put the Lord at the center of your life, you've worked hard to make sure that you're loving the Lord more on Easter than you did today, then you're going to be able to look back on your Lent and say, yeah, that was a fruitful Lent because I put my relationship with the Lord first and I said yes to him.
Ash Wednesday is right around the corner. Now that we know what Lent is and why we practice all these traditions, The next step is to simply prepare. No matter what you do, think about these things ahead of time so you can actually enter into the desert of Lent with more intentionality. We asked the question, how do we do Lent well? It's through these 3 pillars of Lent: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And in the next 3 episodes, we're going to dive into each of these 3 practices to discover how to Lent. Communication, the key ingredient to any lasting relationship. We text, we call, we FaceTime, we post to social media, anything to keep up with those most important to us. Think about it. If you don't communicate with someone, if you don't communicate with a friend, are you really still friends? Relationships take time, they take energy, they take intentionality. So why don't we develop our relationship with God more? Why don't we communicate with him more? After all, we come to know God by actually speaking with him, by spending time with him, by listening to him in prayer. So how do we do that? How do we develop our relationship with God through prayer during Lent? Do you like to pray?
The right answer
No, the real answer.
would be yes.
It's like breathing. Do I like breathing?
I need to pray. I need to pray. I don't always like to pray.
Yeah, I think praying is great.
My prayers are a lot like my ramblings right now.
I think the older I get, the more I do. When I was younger, not as much. I love to pray.
Yes, but I don't think I'm very good at it.
I find it to be very uncomfortable.
I find it boring sometimes.
No, it's hard.
What do you struggle with in prayer?
I think consistency. I think that's a lot of people.
Busyness makes prayer hard.
It can feel a bit of an inconvenience sometimes.
Well, I'm a talker, and I think I like to suggest to God what his will is for me.
Knowing when to ask for something and knowing when to be open to hear what God has to say.
Not listening maybe as intently as I should.
There's always a temptation to fill that silence with noise. I'll start to pray and then something will come into my head and it'll just hijack me.
What is the hardest you've ever prayed for something in your life?
Oh, that's a deep question.
Whoa. I feel like every time that I pray, it's the hardest that I've ever prayed for something.
My sister had a venous stroke in her brain.
My mom was sick in the hospital.
We heard the news that a friend from college had been diagnosed with cancer.
The hardest I've ever prayed for something. Just praying for God to reveal to me what he wants me to do with my life.
I'd probably say while I was discerning marriage.
4 years later, that clarity came and now I'm married.
It was probably the first time I started praying for something where I was like, God might not pull through on this one. And I know he has a plan, but I'm not sure if he will. And I got the news a few weeks ago that he's cancer free.
Prayer is powerful. Prayer can also be difficult. A lot of times we think of prayer as maybe reciting the rosary or perhaps opening up scripture. But what is prayer and what are the different forms?
Basically, prayer is drawing close to God with our mind and heart to praise him, to thank him, to petition him for things, to bless him. In Lent, I like to think especially about the prayer of petition, asking God for things. And the reason is sometimes the lowly prayer of petition, we can kind of dismiss that like, oh my goodness, we're just bringing God our needs all the time. How could we? But I think the truth here is, how could we not? Scripture tells a long story of prayer. Think of Moses, who first encounters God in a surprising way at the burning bush. God asks him to go free his people, and Moses is kind of like, whoa, slow down. I don't know if I'm ready for this. But through that conversation, God sort of convinces Moses and changes his heart. And this is a beautiful example of what prayer is meant to do. Sometimes we think prayer is meant to change God's mind, or God doesn't already know maybe what we want or what we need. But
What does prayer mean to you? Let us make this interactive. What does prayer mean to you? Is prayer supposed to change God, to change what is happening around you, to impact you? What does prayer mean to you in your personal experience? Don't answer from your head. Answer from your heart. How have you used prayer in your life? Because we're going to go into, in the video, the different experiences that people have had with prayer and what ultimately prayer is supposed to be. Okay, let's continue.
That prayer actually changes and prepares our minds and our hearts to receive what God wants to give us.
Prayer is something that often requires silence, contemplation. I'm here in an abbey, in a chapel, a place dedicated for contemplation, for reflection. There's the statues, the artwork, the altar. All of these things are meant to draw our attention to God, to draw us into prayer. But sometimes, even here, there can be so much distractions. We find our mind wandering and thinking about our to-do list or what we're having for dinner, or perhaps how our favorite sports team is doing. So how can we create a place of silence, a place of contemplation within our busy lives?
Episode 2 with Mother Maria Michael. Take 1.
Prayer is our conversation with God. It's our uniting our desires and everything to seek His desires, to seek His will, and most especially just to know Him. He created us to love and to serve Him and to give Him glory and praise. And so by praying, we actually become more who we were made to be than when we don't. I just think the foundation of prayer is really, we belong to our Creator.
When it comes to prayer during the season of Lent, it's about prioritizing intimacy. And one of the primary ways that we nourish it is quality time and communication. Even when we think that we're doing good things for God, even as a priest, I can be so busy that I can say, well, I don't have time to pray because I'm doing good things. It's kind of ridiculous, right? That whenever we are with Jesus, we're the ones that are receiving from Him.
It's interesting looking at the scene of Martha and Mary when Jesus goes to visit them in Bethany. Martha so desperately loves the Lord, she wants to serve Him, and she's doing something really beautiful for Him. But Mary is the one sitting at Jesus's feet, listening to Jesus as He teaches. And of course, Martha gets irritated with Mary for not helping her with the serving. And Jesus says, yeah, but Mary has chosen the better part. I think the point in a way with this scene is that there are times when the Lord is speaking and He just wants us to sit and receive. There's going to be other times when He wants us to be active in serving. That's also going to be part of our vocation in life. But there are times when the Lord wants us to slow down and just receive from Him. So Mary chose a better part in that moment because Jesus was actively trying to share Himself and be and teach.
We can't give what we don't have. And so if I haven't received God's love, if I haven't received God's mercy, if I haven't received God's grace, then how am I supposed to be able to give that same grace, mercy, love, patience to others?
We have to practice prayer. We have to, it's something you have to work at, like a relationship. You want to get to know somebody, spend time with them. You want to know what's in their heart, ask questions and listen with your heart. And I think by that we begin to learn that our greatest joy is really just to hear God's word within us and just to recognize His presence. We don't have to do anything to do that. We're a joy to God by just being there. We don't have to do anything. He created us. He wants us. He loves us. One time at prayer, I heard, wait for me. And I said, well, what's this waiting about? So all day I'm going through the day going, wait for me, wait for me. And I didn't quite get it. So the end of the day after compline, I said, I'm going to sit here until God tells me what this wait for. And all of a sudden I heard, no, I'm waiting for you. God would wait for me. If that doesn't humble one to the very core, how could anything else? And once I heard that, every time I go in the chapel, it's, I know you've waited for me and I want to be here.
When we pray, we're actually not starting prayer. God always starts prayer. What we're doing is we're responding to something that God started with this idea of, okay, God is reaching out to me and God makes himself known. How do I respond? How would you respond? Right? Use something of yourself and give of yourself to God in that way. Sometimes you might not be able to give, everything, right? Or what you think God might deserve, or what you think was good or not, or maybe you didn't feel anything. It's less about how you feel. That you gave, or at least attempted to give, with a true good intention, God can work with that. But you have to try.
On Ash Wednesday, we hear in the readings how we're supposed to retreat to our inner rooms and pray to our Heavenly Father in secret. And creating that space for contemplation can take some work. We're rarely actually at an abbey, at a place made for contemplation. We live out here in the world. So how can we best focus in on the voice of God, no matter where we are?
I think we converse with the world too much. We don't converse with the Creator. It's the distractions in the world that I think have become so huge. It takes now, you have to almost go out to the country not to hear anything. But to tell you the truth, it's the distractions inside that are the loudest. Those are the ones that I think we're running from sometimes. And I think one has to really become comfortable with oneself and actually love oneself. To love oneself is to love what God created within us. And to be happy to be with yourself. And then the quiet begins because there's no reprimands. There's nothing more than I love to be the whole person before God. Practically speaking, turn off the radio. Turn off all the things that keep talking to you. And also find the appropriate places for silence. Sometimes even just practicing silence in the car, just saying, I just want to take a moment to think of God while I'm driving. I want to maybe even take a 5-minute walk around the block and not speak anything. It's a challenge, but once you experience the silence that just draws you from the depths, you keep seeking it. You have to cultivate that, though. And I think you have to be determined to. You don't think the evil one isn't going to do his best to distract you. I can tell you sometimes, every time I go to prayer for something special, everybody comes up to ask me a question. The cows get out. Everything should happen. Just be determined to follow through after that. Prayer is the highest value. And so you begin to see that in your life. Don't let it go. You're letting go of the most beautiful thing you can have on earth. And I think our whole life should be one in which we talk to God, and then we run out and work and do our things, and then we come back and talk to Him. We do that in our prayers every day. We have a schedule of prayers in which we have a specific time. We get up early and go and talk to Him, have a time of Lectio, and we have our breakfast, then we go out and work. The lovely thing about a routine of prayer is that it's not about how you feel. Doesn't matter if you're having a good day or a questionable day, or if you're not feeling like running in prayer. Your schedule says you're going to prayer. When I was younger, it was a little harder. It's funny, as you get older, it gets easier. And I think it's simply because love has guided you. And you begin to see clearly what has value and what doesn't. And after a while, you really don't want anything else but His love. You find yourself shedding everything that isn't Him, because He is everything.
Saint Therese of Lisieux, one of my favorite saints, says this: "For me, prayer is an upward leap of the heart, an untroubled glance towards heaven, a cry of gratitude and love, which I utter from the depths of sorrow, as well as from the heights of joy. I think if we get this one thing right, if we prioritize our relationship with God first, the rest will follow. Ask our Lord to show you how you can love Him better. You might be surprised at how much a simple morning offering could help you, or even stopping by the church for an extra 30 minutes a week. This Lent, make a serious commitment to deepen your prayer life and your relationship with the Lord. Today, everything is available to us in an instant, right now. Drive-thrus, same-day shipping, information at our fingertips. At the click of a button, I can have pretty much anything that I want. Even this video, you clicked on it and now you're here. Everything is available to us how we want it and when we want it. Amidst all of this, fasting stands in contrast. To deny ourselves what we desire, even good things, is a hallmark of the Lenten season. We Catholics have all sorts of guidelines and traditions when it comes to fasting. And oftentimes we'll even choose something to give up for Lent. So in a world of instant gratification, what can we learn from telling ourselves no?
Why do you think we fast?
Why do we fast? Because the Lord told us to.
I don't know.
Okay, this one is very important. A lot of people need to get this one clear. We need to get this one clear. But you know, the best way to learn is to be engaged with the information and to also look back at what you've done, what you're doing currently, and fashion out or figure out a plan or new action for future. So, why do you fast? Have you ever fasted, by the way? Why do you fast? What do you fast from? How do you fast? Please drop it on the comment section. This next few minutes will be showing us why we fast, or like the theological reason behind fasting, a better understanding of fasting that may not be what you used to know. I know some of you used to fast so that you can pull God's hand to come and answer you. So that's okay. Just leave it in the comments. Let's know. Let's hear you. Why do you fast? Or do you even fast? All right, so let's continue.
I don't know. I think it's biblical. It's a good sacrifice and a good reminder.
It's a way to offer ourselves physically to the Lord.
I think it's just to, fast before the feast.
So it's just giving something up worldly, like here, for the sake of hopefully the kingdom afterwards.
Have you ever given up chocolate or a certain type of food for Lent?
Oh yeah, chocolate's like the go-to. Actually, I'm thinking about giving up chocolate this Lent because chocolate is my dirty little secret.
Oh yes, chocolate, alcohol, sweets.
I've not tried giving up coffee because I'm afraid that would make me less than human if I did that. So,
Do you like fasting?
no.
No.
Does anyone like fasting?
I don't know anyone who likes not eating.
I do actually. It's one of my favorite parts.
I hate fasting.
I find it to be a little bit challenging.
It's hard. No, I don't really like it that much, but that's okay.
Not really. No. I guess that's why fasting is a sacrifice because I don't enjoy it very much. No.
Fasting can be the most obvious, yet perhaps the most difficult pillar of Lent. What does the church have to say about fasting?
The church has always prescribed different kinds of fasting throughout the history of the church. This is a very common thread you can see from the very earliest times till today. So the rules for fasting today are that you need to observe stricter fasting and no meat on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. On those 2 days, you're supposed to only have 2 small meals and 1 larger meal that is no bigger than the 2 small meals combined. And then you're also supposed to avoid meat every Friday of Lent. One of the reasons we give up meat as opposed to sort of apples or something else is because we're remembering the sacrifice of Christ. So especially on Fridays, we're remembering the past.
Hi everyone, I have Paulinus here on the phone. His network is not good, so he wants to ask his question now before we continue the video. Okay, so Paulinus, oh, go. Yeah, good evening. Go ahead.
I don't know if I should call this a question or a personal view. Fasting to me, I don't know. Fasting to me is not only a theological activity. Let me put it that way. Personally, I fast, and I don't fast because I'm a Christian. I fast each time I have a task at hand. This task demands critical reasoning. It demands critical analysis. So I actually deny myself of food to actually ignite that zeal to finish up to pay attention to whatever I'm doing before I could eat.
Okay.
So personally, I fast not as a Christian, not on religious basis, but for my own personal, say how I just discovered that fasting helps to actually make someone smarter at some point in time if you have any critical tasks to do.
I completely agree with you. There is no but. Okay, fasting is not only like a Christian thing or a theological thing. Pharmacists, doctors, clinical practitioners, they utilize fast, sometimes called intermittent fasting, to go around like the optimum care of a patient. Sometimes because of the body system of a patient, they want to stay for a while without food coming into the system. Maybe they are working on the intestine. Maybe there is a need where they just want to stop the inflow of nutrients so that they can like observe well and treat better. Fasting is also used in different other ways. So I'm not saying but. What you've said is completely correct. It's absolutely right. People use intermittent fasting to like lose weight. And when I was in the junior seminary, man, we used to think critically because we were very hungry. They will give us eba that is not as big as this round thing. This round eba that is, and the soup is so small, so we have to add water sometimes and add salt. The hunger we experienced then was not the best, but it formed us as men. I learned during that time that you see this thing fasting, you see this thing like you're feeling pressed to go to the toilet to urinate or something like that. All of those things are like hunger is a thing of the mind. Some of us have some of us have stayed for like a whole day without eating. At the end of the day, remember, wow, I've not eaten. No. But the moment you remember it, you become so hungry. The same thing with like if you're feeling pressed to go and urinate. So fasting is not just a theological or like thing for the Christian or religious people. Let's look at it as just the biological aspect or the totality of the human body. We are not just flesh and blood. We are also spirit. There's something like beyond metaphysical about the human being. And to the more we feed, okay, right now I am on my treadmill, I am exercising, so I am feeding my body with the right things that make it grow better. I'm taking care of my body. So the same way, so the body and the spirit are sometimes always conflicting. So when when we are just too fed, when we eat so much food, brain no dey again. Because we see ourselves dozing up, we are sleeping, we are not like so active. But
I think it's because we actually give our body that access to food always whenever we feel like we want to eat. if you decide to not eat, and then it becomes a part of, like, decide not to eat for like certain hours, and it becomes part of you. You notice that hunger sometimes when people are complaining that they are hungry, you don't.
Yeah.
Because your body has adjusted to that.
Yeah. Yeah. If you do it serious fasting, after a while, food doesn't move you anymore. Like you'll be struggling to eat. So let me just end it there so we can continue. We have like some minutes to finish the video. I understand that your network may not be good to stay with us, but I hope that that is not even an answer. I'm just validating your point that fasting is not just a spiritual, theological, or some activity for religious people, but because it is so important in the scheme of things overall, we utilize it. And Jesus would not say if you fast, he said when you fast, because he sees it as something that is central, fundamental to our spiritual life. Like to any good, the optimum human functioning, it is so important. So it is not if, it is when. And there's a way I think about it. I wanted to share it at the end here, but that's okay. Now let me share it. There's a way I think about fasting. The human body, the human person is flesh and spirit. Like we're not just um human flesh. So the one you feed is the one that grows. If you feed the flesh just boom. But if you feed the spirit, how do you feed the spirit? Because they are both like on a pendulum or on like a bar. The one, if you feed one, the other one grows higher. If you feed one, the other one grows higher. So if you feed the spirit, that means you are toning down the feeding of the flesh. The spirit goes higher and you are more attuned to things beyond. You are more attuned, you are more receptive to both metaphysical, philosophical, and spiritual realities around you. So that's one way to think about fasting that is not just religious or spiritual. Paulinus, I'm going to drop now so I can continue the video. A lot of people are online. All right, thank you.
Passion, Good Friday, that Christ gave his body, gave his flesh, and so we abstain from eating flesh on that day. So it's related to the Passion. Famously, Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights after his baptism in order to prepare for his mission. Jesus quotes Deuteronomy to the devil, saying, "Man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." We're reminding ourselves that this life is more than food, that our final goal is more than our appetites, and that we can survive giving things up. So Lent and fasting is a period of training. We're training ourselves not to be attached to the things of the world.
We see fasting everywhere, throughout history, in the scriptures, and even today. It's so common. Right here, I have the very proof of the impact of even Catholic fasting. Let me explain. Right here is the fillet of fish. We all know what this is, this fast food Lenten staple. But it's not just some random menu item. McDonald's made the fillet of fish in response to Catholic fasting. They realized they weren't getting as many sales, not as many hamburgers going out the door, because Catholics were abstaining from meat on Fridays. And so they created this as an alternative. Fasting is something that has always been present, and there's a reason why. We know that there's a good in denying ourselves and saying no to our appetites. It's a very human challenge. But beyond that, what should fasting look like from a Catholic perspective?
Fasting for us is probably the one that we like the least, right? It's something just that is right under the skin. It's the most tactile. Fasting is something that we feel in our bones. And it's not something that we can even run away from. And it takes kind of intentionality. It takes a discipline, like you would going to the gym. Discipline is allowing oneself to understand and have that balance and understanding what is it that I need versus what is it that I want. For example, donuts are a wonderful thing. We love donuts. Donuts have a goodness, right? There's a yummy goodness. But we don't eat a plate of donuts every time we walk past it because it's a good, because of its yummy goodness, because we achieve and seek a higher goodness. which is health. And in Lent and with fasting, it is a particular purpose to strive to reorient and value and incorporate those disciplines in our life to reorient ourselves to God.
It'd be very easy for me to give up cream spinach or broccoli or other things that maybe you'd say are these health foods that I could give up kale in a heartbeat and I wouldn't miss it. But if you ask me to give up something that is a comfort food, I am reminding my body that my soul is in charge. And that the soul says, as good as this may be, it's not what is best. So that's why we allow our stomachs to growl a bit during the season of Lent, because we remind the body that the soul is hungering and thirsting for the things of God. And whereas the things of the world may not be bad, they're not the most important thing.
One of the Psalms in the Easter Vigil says this: "As a deer longs for running streams, my soul longs for you, my God." It's beautiful that that's kind of the beginning of the Easter celebration. It kind of caps off everything we've been doing during Lent. Lent is that time where, like the deer, we learn that longing in our heart. It's why we need fasting. When we choose fasting in Lent, when we choose fasting at any time, we're cutting out the non-essentials in life so that we can feel that desire, that burning longing that we have for God. We learn how to long for the Lord the way that the deer longs for running streams.
Fasting is not just about food. It's a very simple way. It's a very basic way in that, everybody needs to eat. But I think as we develop and mature in our own self-awareness and self-reflection, as we examine ourselves, we can find our way toward fasting in perhaps more meaningfully intentional ways. Fasting from your phone, social media, giving up something that's good, maybe innocuous, not necessarily a bad thing. The intentionality to do something not for solely your sake, but for the intention of drawing closer and developing that relationship with God is the purpose.
In our modern world, the idea of going without, of being uncomfortable, can be so foreign to us. We simply expect to have amenities like warm running water in the shower, snacks in the pantry, air conditioning. These things are just a given in our day-to-day lives. Part of Lent is learning how to live without some of these things that make our lives more comfortable, for the purpose of making space in our hearts for God. After all, in the Ash Wednesday readings, we hear how we're supposed to return to the Lord with our whole hearts, with fasting. There are so many ordinary comforts that we could give up. Technology, entertainment, food, of course. So how can we invite fasting into our normally comfortable lives?
If you're coming from a place where maybe it's been a while, maybe you've never really actually entered into Lent, that's sort of a kind of intentionality that maybe you're desiring right now, don't bite off more than you can chew. Start small. And don't have to do everything. Pick one thing that is personal to you. But I think before you choose what might be good for you, you kind of have to take a time and ask, where am I in my life? What are the things that maybe are more wants than needs? Where are those imbalances that may even particularly distract me from God?
See, we need to emphasize that one. Don't bite off more than you can chew. You are planning to do fasting for this Lent. Don't go and write a long list that once you finish doing it, God will make you deputy. Don't do that. Start with something small, something realizable, something achievable, something you can do and do well. I remember one time when I was in the seminary, I was talking with my spiritual director. That journal is somewhere here. I just don't want to go and look for it now. So I was telling my spiritual director my plans for Lent. And my spiritual director is a reverend sister. She's still my spiritual director now. So I gave her the whole list I had written. I wake up by 5:15 a.m. No, like 4:30 a.m. I will do one rosary. I will go and do jogging. I will keep quiet. I will read this one. I will meditate on that one. I will do this one. I will not eat this one. I will, goodness. When we are going to school, I will keep quiet. When she saw that long list, she told me, Fortunatus, you're not entering a spiritual rat race. You know how they do rat race, like you are not, that's not what Lent is. Lent is not a spiritual rat race. Lent is not a like bring it on, let's get it done. Christ has done it already. what you are invited to do is to consider what is taking the place of God in your life. It may be food, it may be anything else. They have mentioned phone, social media. Somebody just shared that they fasted from makeup, from earrings, different things that you can achieve. So, yeah, at the end of the day, please start small. And again, if you happen to fall after the first day or second day, don't give up. No, 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 don't give up. You can have so many or few good ideas, and in the beginning, maybe just after 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, you fall or you did not do what you planned to do. Don't stop. Don't give up. The next day, continue like never before. The next day, continue like nothing ever happened. The finish line is the success. Faithfulness, not just numerical success. Be faithful. So even when you fail and you find that, oh my goodness, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, I say I would not do this, I'm doing this. Continue the next day. Okay? So let's finish this. Let's round this up. And then I'll take calls.
What are those things in my life that maybe I find myself I don't want to do, but I do, like St. Paul says, or I'm not doing the things that I want to do or should do, as St. Paul says, the same line. Habits are a really good place to start. What are my habits? In what way do they take away in my time, in my desires from the better things? And to practice for a time, withholding those habits that we've just gotten so used to and intentionally striving for a greater good, namely God. I think there has to be that self-reflection, and it's not going to be the same for every person. Don't be preoccupied with what you're doing. It's not really about what you do. It's about the quality of the love with which you do it. So don't judge your prayer. Don't judge your intent. Offer what you can, but offer it for the love of God and be amazed at what God can do with it.
This is where rubber meets the road. It's time to figure out how you can incorporate fasting into your Lent. What are you going to give up? Is it social media? Is it some sort of food? Is it music? Do some reflection and think about your fasting. Pray about your fasting. How are you going to make space for God in your life? How are you going to let yourself feel some of that discomfort? Remember, the desert of Lent is supposed to be uncomfortable. So don't shy away from that. Embrace it. Decide what you're going to give up, write it down, and then with some of that extra time, with that energy, return to the foundation of prayer that we talked about earlier. Now is the chance to get practical about what it is you can live without, and then do that thing, and do it for the love of God.
Okay, thank you all for joining and for watching that. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. I hope it was meaningful. There's one more video on alms giving. Maybe I'll show it later. What did you learn? What did you remember? Because some of these things are not new to most of us who are Catholics. And I don't think they're even new to other Christians. These are principles that can be applied across board. So I would want to know, what did you learn? What did you remember? Again, we have, I didn't really want to bother talking about the competition or the challenge that we're doing, because I think it is very clear for those who have registered. All those who have registered by now, they are aware of how we are doing it. All those who have registered, so those who have registered by now know the rules, the instructions. Maybe I will just say that we are still accepting registrations, but those who register late, because registration officially has closed, but because we want to leave the window open for other Catholics who want to express themselves, we are leaving that window open, obviously, but we still want to be fair to those who registered early, to those who registered on time. We want to be fair to them. So what we're doing is that those who are registering late will pay 2,000 naira that will not be refunded. For the early registration people, those who registered in the right time, their money is refunded, their 2,000 naira is refunded. It's only just so that we can have some commitment from them. But if you are registering now, you're welcome. But we want to be fair to those who took their time to register on time. So that your 2,000 naira that we will not refund to you will be used to give consolation prizes to those that registered early. So everybody that registered early, you will not go empty-handed at the end of this challenge. Even if it is 2,000 naira or 5,000, we'll try to make it available to you just to appreciate you for the time. Some of you paid video editors, some of you, spent time doing this. It's a lot of work to do this kind of conversation. So because I do it a lot, I know what it takes to put your face out there. So we want to incentivize, appreciate that effort. Does anybody have any question? My phone number is here. What do we? Is Comfort still here? Abiola Funa don't run. There are so many things I would have loved to share with you people, but we have gone far into the day, so I will be closing it around this time. If there's no question, then we'll have a good day, okay? Okay, Comfort. Is there any question that I did not? Is there anything you want me to speak about or clarify in terms of the challenge? Oh, Rejoice. Thank you. By the way, thank you all for joining, for being here. This is something that does not bear fruit in one day and may just bear fruit for one person. So we are very aware of what we're doing and we know how challenging it can be. And you are spending your time and your data to be here. Don't worry, after our 1 million naira challenge, we'll begin to see how we can encourage those who do not have data to join our live sessions. We have been doing that, but we can only put one hand in one mouth at the same time. At one time, sorry. Okay, if there's nothing else, I will. So any newly registered person will see it. Yeah, okay. The rules for the challenge or challenge. Let me not be using our accent to do that one. Yeah, okay. So we have different rules for the challenge. Let me see. First one is that we are posting the videos not on the same day so that it does not overwhelm all of you. We have received a lot of videos. If we post everything on Ash Wednesday, it will be overwhelming and there wouldn't be any sense of like anticipation. And we want that. We want you to come back every day to see something new, to think about it for that day, reflect on what that person shared, agree or disagree with them, then come back the next day, see another video. So given that we are not going to post all the videos the same day, but we are concerned, rightly so, about the need for fairness for those who their videos will be posted first and those who their videos will be uploaded later. What is the criteria for that? So we have decided to upload videos based on the time you sent it to us. So the first person to send us his or her video is the first one we will post, and that will be for the second, the third, and moving forward. So that said, that is part of why we still left registration and participation open. Another thing about rules is that we are aware. We are very much aware of things like click boxes, click farms, um, fake engagement, and I know, I know, and I have the resources. I have the softwares for finding out posts of videos that have been um, that is using any kind of fake engagement. So we have made it clear to those who are participating, because again, the way we assess this is by the number of people your message impacts. I can pay. What's going on? Am I still on this live? I can pay. Oh, okay. Deadline. I'm coming to deadline. Okay. I can pay people to like be the judge, but that's gonna be a lot on me. I'm doing this with a few support from people. I've posted those who have donated or sponsored us. So we cannot bite more than we can chew. So for this year, maybe next year we'll do something different. But for this year, we are not stressing ourselves to go any extra mile to judge or evaluate the videos. The videos will evaluate themselves by the impact that they make. And we judge impact by positive and negative. If your video made people angry, that is impact. If your video made people happy and they like it, that is impact. So views, likes, comments, shares, dislikes, all of those things, we'll put them together when we judge who's the winner. So because we know that these are the things that we're judging with, we also know that people will very likely think about using fake engagement. I've made that warning because I have the resources and I know how to find these things, that if you use fake engagement, you'll be disqualified and will give you a chance to explain yourself. If you don't have any credible explanation, it will make you popular as a deceitful person. I wonder how anybody will come to a page that's dedicated to accountability and transparency and then want to play pranks. That's not welcome here. The other thing is that in the video you make, you must acknowledge me, son of big God. You must acknowledge me. Yes, thank you for asking. You have to acknowledge where this video is going and who is organizing this. I need that acknowledgement. Yeah. And they ask people to follow my page and YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Everything is Son of Big God. That's another condition. Let me see if there's another one. Ooh. So people, you are still welcome to register, but the only thing is that your 2,000 naira will no more be refunded to you because you are registering late. Okay, we'll now use that 2,000 naira and do compensation prices for those that registered early. Deadline for submission of videos for those that registered early is tomorrow, 3rd of March. Tomorrow. If Is tomorrow 3rd of March? Yeah. Yes, tomorrow. Oh, yes, tomorrow is 3rd of March. So deadline for those who registered early. Early means before the 23rd of before the 23rd of February. So the deadline is 3rd of March, so that you will still be among those that will receive consolation prizes, whether you win or not. Okay, so those who registered early, you have until 3rd of March. That's tomorrow to send us your video. Some people have sent their videos, and so your video has to include your face. We don't want a video that the AI generates something based on something you wrote. No, we want your face. We want human faces behind these stories. We want you to be proud of our church. Show that you are proud of our church, and it is because of your love for our church that you are offering your feedback. And feedback, like I have shared before, is like evaluation is about saying what is. What is. What is. So there must be something present in the church that is good. Say it. If there is something that is not so good and you love to see it change, say it. Then you say what you yourself would do differently and what other people you hope that they do differently. Let me see again. Thank you, Comfort, for putting these things down, because I think I'm forgetting some of them. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Zini, what group do you belong to? I don't think anybody has submitted a video that did not do that. Was it? I don't think so. But you can chat me up, Zini. Let's talk about it. But it has to happen. You have to acknowledge me. I need it. It's sweeting my body. Well. So what else? Did we forget anything? I know you are right. These rules are evolving, and I understand, or I can imagine the frustration. These rules are evolving. Part of why they are just coming up is because I had a lot of assumption that everybody is like me, because I don't see how I will go to do a challenge, or how I will participate in a context without acknowledging the platform that organized the context. I didn't personally see how I would do that, but when I started receiving videos from people and they would just do a video, there's no mention of Son of Big God or the platform where it is happening. They just do a video. I'm like, really? So people are different from me, and I have to understand that. But I also have to take steps to name my own needs. My needs in this thing is that the message goes wide and that more people come to see the message that we're sharing here. That's a need I have. You can call it search for relevance. That is fine. We all want to be loved and to love. And if we put in effort in something, we want to be appreciated. There's nothing to be ashamed or to shy about. So I put in a lot of effort in this, a lot of time, sleepless nights, and resources. I lose friends. Those come with anybody who is on any mission. So I just want to make sure that at least now that I'm still alive, you can acknowledge me that I'm the one that did this thing. In future, if somebody else does it, then acknowledge them. It has never happened before. I'm not trying to be proud about it, but we are daring with our love for our church. So Zini, you're right. They are coming up new because again, people are not like me, and I had a lot of assumptions. And this is the first time we're doing it. So in future, we'll make sure to be more proactive in the guidelines. Our team did this video before you people brought out this. Oh my God, Zini. Zini, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. What should I do? Should I pay for your video editing? Zini, should I pay for... I hear your frustration there. I'm so sorry. I just have to make this clear. But again, I take responsibility for not making it clear before. I assumed that everybody, again, would be like me, but everybody is not like me. So that's it. Bikobara or Zini. Zini, what will I do to appease you? Zini, babe. Zini, baby. What will I do to appease you and your group members? Do we have any other question? No, I like the fact that you're speaking up. This is what I do. If you don't feel happy about something, say it. And if there is anything you want me to do about it, I can. By Hamot. Zin is my prefect now. We know where we meet. Zini. Zini baby. Sorry, oh. I have to do that because I mean I don't understand how I will post videos on my platform that do not acknowledge me. What if the person wins 1 million? I will give them my 1 million naira. And they couldn't have you people forgotten the whole thing we thought about the victim triangle? We are learning, we have to continue to grow. So this is my fault, please. Zini, I'm sorry. And everybody who feels bad about this, I apologize for it. I apologize for it. Please forgive me. Oh, there's something else about this. So the videos are going to be scheduled. Once I receive all the videos of the first batch of people by tomorrow, end of tomorrow, I will schedule them and I will write each of you and tell you the date when your own video will be posted so that you just date and time so that you just be waiting that day. Come, you see the video, collect the link, share it with your friends, let them come and view it and support you and like and share and comment. You are going to be, I'm empowering you to take ownership of this challenge. I keep calling it challenge. This is my Igbo accent. Challenge. Okay. Zini, if you're angry, it's okay. Don't worry. You have the right to be angry because we did not do it well. But I've explained why we did not do it well. Oh, Bikobara. So, is there any other thing anybody has for me, like a question or something before we go? Any question, any comment that needs my attention? By the way, okay, I'll call you after now. Not Cindy, but all right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for joining. I hope that you think about what Lent means to you and how you want to go about Lent this time. That's important. Don't just wait until Ash Wednesday say, hey, Lent has come. Oh, Lent has come. Plan for it. Sit down in prayer and ask God, what are you calling me to pay attention to this time? What are you calling me to pay attention? So it's the idea is, what is one thing or two in your life that if you take away, you have more space for God? Me, I know my own well. I know my own. Is this Facebook page? Is this Facebook? Is this thing we're doing here? Even though it is good, though, even though it is good, but it takes time. It takes my time, you know. So I won't tell you what I'm going to be fasting from, but we can be honest about our own journeys. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving you guys now. Thank you all for joining us. And I'll see you again maybe next week. Actually, I'm not promising because I may or may not do live next week. So I hope that you have the answers to questions you asked. And yeah, peace out. Thank you all for joining.